Hey everyone, welcome to day one of the Sunflower Seams Sew Along. For this month's Sew Along, we will be tackling Daphne together. Each Sew Along is separated into 5 days of sewing. Day one, we will be figuring out which sizes to sew, printing out our patterns if applicable, and cutting out our pattern pieces. Day two, we will be completing steps 1 through 15, which will be creating our bodice. Day 3 will be steps 16 through 24, which will be creating and attaching our sleeves. Day 4 will be steps 26 through 30, which will be constructing and attaching the optional pockets. And day 5 will be creating and attaching the skirt, which is steps 31 through 36. Day 6 will be dedicated solely to catching up, and then day 7 will be when you post your final photos, either a flat lay or a modeled photo. Each day you will post a progress picture in the Daphne Sew Along album that can be found in the group starting day 1. Daphne is offered in a wide range of sizes between newborn and a size 14. Within the pattern, there are a few decisions that have to be made on which options you would like to sew. First, you have to choose between the short and long puff sleeve. You need to choose your skirt length, which is between a peplum, vintage, and dress. And then also decide if you want to add the optional pockets. Once you have decided which options you are going to sew, you will then want to gather your supplies. Besides the normal iron, thread, scissors, and ruler, you will also need 1/4 inch elastic and buttons. The buttons will be just for decorative purposes, and you can choose to leave them out. Pages 10 and 11 in the tutorial walk you through how to measure and what to measure on your model to make sure that you'll get the perfect fit. Once you have those measurements, you will want to compare them to the size charts found on page 11 to find out which sizes you need to use for the height and for the chest of your model. Page 12 then explains how to grade and blend in between sizes if your model doesn't fall into one size for all of the ranges. It's pretty common for children to have different proportions than what is found on the size chart. For example, my daughter is 6 years old and she has a size 4 chest, a size 3 waist, and between a size 5 and 6 length. So page 12 would help me determine how to grade and blend those sizes to make sure that the garment fits her best. It is very important to measure your model before sewing each garment, as we know that kids love to have those growth spurts overnight. One of the most disappointing things is to spend so much time making a garment that isn't going to fit your model. So be sure to measure, measure, measure. Once you know which sizes you will need, you can then use pages 14 and 15 to figure out which pages to print if you're using the printable PDF file. If you are using the projector file, then steps 14 and 15 are not applicable to you. Lastly, on page 16, you will find the measurement cut charts for all rectangle pieces and the elastic. If you are choosing to print your pattern off of the printable PDF, make sure that you print page 42. 42 is going to have not only your size key, but also your test square. It is very important that you measure your test square. Even if you have printed off a Sunflower Seams pattern in the past and it came out perfectly, you want to make sure to measure this test square for each and every print. Sometimes Adobe will have updates that'll change your settings that you may not be aware of. And if this 1-inch square or 5-centimeter square is off by even a little bit, it can drastically change the way your garment is going to fit. And once again, we don't want to waste time making a piece of clothing that may not fit in the long run. Now, when it comes to connecting the rest of your pattern pieces, you will notice that there are circles, sometimes half circles, in each corner of your pattern pages. Each circle also contains letters on the inside that let you know which corners should be overlapping. So once you have all your pages, you will use the outside rectangle lines to use as a way to line the pages up, as well as making sure that your circle and letters are completely overlapped, and then you can tape them or glue them together. Once you have all of your pattern pieces taped or glued together, you will then want to cut them out. Once they are cut out, you can then transfer the shape to your fabric and cut along that traced line. Once everything is cut out, you should have 2 sleeves, whether short or long. You should have your front top main bodice. You should have your waist band that's cut on the fold. You should have your main back bodice that is mirrored, so you should have 2 of them. You should have your back bodice elastic casing, which is cut on the fold. You should have your front bodice lining and your back bodice lining. You should have 2 skirt pieces, whether that be peplum skirt, vintage skirt, or dress skirt. And then if you're choosing to do the optional pockets, then you will also want 2 main pockets and 2 lining pockets. Please note that the pocket lining will be visible once the pocket is constructed and attached to your skirt. So be sure to choose a lining that coordinates with your main fabric. And that is all for day 1 of the Daphne Sunflower Seams Sew Along. Tomorrow we will get started and finishing our bodices. Hope you'll join us then.